Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lender who helps it grow. Lance Sexton, Delaney Sexton are in the house. Lance, welcome.
It's good to be here, Bob. I'm glad it's Friday.
Yes. I understand your webinar went well on Wednesday.
Had a great webinar, talked about equity injection and how to do a good job of documenting and avoiding issues with equity injection, and had a lot of people on, so it went well.
Good. Be sure and download the certificates. That's good to answer the question what you're doing for training. This obviously, even though this is free, it's still training. Lance, this just in from SBA yesterday. What's SBA telling us here? Anything new? Is there an overriding theme, or is this just cleanup?
Well, I think it's answering some questions that lenders have asked. The first point, SBA is trying to encourage us if we have the ability to offset funds. For instance, you've got a PPP borrower who has either defaulted on their PPP loan or making no effort to pay it back or submit forgiveness, and they have accounts and you have the ability to offset. SBA is trying to encourage us to offset funds on PPP borrowers who are in default. Also, forgiveness, a lot of the forgiveness decisions that are made are automatic decisions. They're basically not reviewed by a person, but reviewed by the platform, and sometimes there are partial forgiveness decisions, and SBA is discussing timelines and guidelines in submitting a request for a regular review of a partial forgiveness. They're talking about extensions of maturity. A lot of people have asked the question, and they're just clarifying that if you as a financial institution want to extend the maturity on a PPP loan that was not forgiven or partially forgiven, the remaining balance, you can do so. Basically, it's the same guidelines as found in the SOP 5057-2. Talks about reporting on loans once it's forgiven. You mark it paid in full. Until it's marked paid in full or charged off, it needs to show up on the 1502 report. Also, what to do, and we've had a couple of these where I submitted for guarantee purchase. We got paid on guarantee purchase, and suddenly the borrower pops up and says, hey, I want to apply for forgiveness. Well, right now, there's not a way to do that. And SBA, basically, they told us, yes, there's going to be a way to do it. Yes, they are working on it. So again, as we all know, on PPP loans, the borrower can submit for forgiveness up to the maturity date of the loan. So you may have submitted a guarantee purchase and the borrower says, hey, wait a second, I want to submit for forgiveness. Well, they can still do it, but we don't know how. Many of you...
I'm sorry, finish your thought. Finish your thought.
Many of us have experienced those pesky hold codes, 544 and others. And, the question is, do we need to get those cleared before we submit for forgiveness? And the answer is no. That actually complicates things. What we're doing on a lot of the hold codes, because the platform doesn't want to let us submit through the direct forgiveness process, we're doing manual submissions, and those are getting processed by SBA, and the hold codes are being cleared in that process. And finally, sorry guys, normally Delaney sends me a text and says, turn your phone off. And we were both running late today, so let me do, anyway, also how you can, once a guarantee purchase has been made by SBA and you receive payments or funds from the lender, how you submit those to SBA. So it's some clarification and some updates, and also, Bob, some discussion of, we know there's a problem, we're trying to fix it, and we'll have a fix soon.
Well, Lance, you're going to do a webinar on this Unforgiven next Wednesday, which is incorporate all of these changes as well as any of the updates you have. You anticipate more updates, correct?
Sure do, Bob. There's quite a number of things that come up in PPP forgiveness. As my good friend Jim that works with me and I state there's a new present every day when we wake up and work on PPP forgiveness. There are new problems, new challenges, new problems we have to figure out how to overcome. So yes, I do expect additional.
We'll call it job security, Lance. How's that sound? Lance, got a question from Ed, and I'm going to put you on the spot because I haven't heard about this, but Ed says, I've been told that if the unforgiven portion of a PPP loan is no longer 100% guaranteed by the SBA, which I find hard to believe. We called the help desk and they said this is true. Have you heard anything like that, or is this?
I have not heard that, Bob, but you know, there is some strong validity in Ed's questions, because quite often when you have a partial forgiveness, that is the result of improper calculation of the loan amount originally. And SBA has determined that they, you know, for instance, if they had a $150,000 loan, SBA has determined they didn't calculate it properly and they should have only had a $100,000 loan. I have not heard that SBA would not honor the guarantee on the part that was not forgiven. And that should be one of those things that's added to these FAQs, Bob. It's like I said, every day we wake up and there's something new. I've not heard that, but again, there is some validity to it, because SBA is basically, in some of these cases, is stating that, hey, they were not eligible for that amount to begin with.
Well, my thinking was it had to do with interest, because SBA only guarantees a certain percentage of interest on 7A loans. Perhaps they only guarantee a certain percentage of PPP loans. Therefore, maybe that's what they're thinking.
No, I don't think it's interest, Bob. I think it's the unforgiven portion that SBA is determined is not eligible. Now, I do encourage you, don't work. The help desk is not manned typically, and if I speak out of turn, I know we always have SBA people on the Coleman report. The help desk is not typically manned by, or, you know, the person on that phone is typically a contractor and may not have a deep seasoned knowledge of PPP loans.
Well, you took a long time to be politically in that statement.
I was trying to be politically correct there, but I'll just state this: there's some validity in that concern, but I've not heard at this point, Bob, that they're not honoring.
We'll follow up on that, Ed. It's a great question.
And you know, Ed, the best way is, I think I have one of those that may be ready for guarantee purchase. So I may submit for guarantee purchase and find out from experience. So
this just in, Lance, 2 U.S. senators asked SBA about relief for borrowers in bad franchise systems. This is our friend Jonathan Mays wrote this for Franchise Times. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Catherine Mosto said that if SBA has a bad brand, and they cited Burgerim, that perhaps SBA should forgive it, a la the educational loan situation where you go borrow money for an uncertified or a bad experience. It's just interesting concept. My initial reaction, Lance, is no, these are small businesses. They're supposed to be making these type of decisions, and they have a different level of expertise than a young person getting out of high school and going to college. Lance?
Well, I think that one of the things that does bring some relevance to this, Bob, is SBA has an approved franchise list, which they have reviewed and vetted and said, yes, this is an okay franchise.
No. I disagree with you. They vetted that, said this is a franchise. They're not blessing.
Well, but that's where the senator is going with this, Bob.
Right.
He's saying SBA has an approved franchise list, and if a borrower jumps in and a lot of the information in the franchise offering doesn't turn out exactly as it is presented, you know, is there some protection SBA can find? Now, I agree with you, Bob. Somebody that borrows money, it's their duty to do the due diligence and to ask the questions and to make sure it's a quality franchise. But I think I know where these senators are going with this, and I hate to I'm not siding with them, Bob, but I can also understand what they might be pegging their argument on is, it is an approved SBA franchise. They won't
Well,
win
they're
unless
saying, yeah, but they're saying state of California was fined $4 million in order to refund franchise fees to 1,500 people who signed up for the franchise. So they're basically saying it's not a franchise. Interesting conversation. So
yeah.
we'll be following that. I doubt that's going to have any traction, but we'd like to report on these stories to let you know what people are thinking and specifically what your legislators are thinking. Delaney, are you all set and ready to rock and roll? There she is.
Yes, I'm here. And Dad, you got to stop blaming me for your ringer. I heard that earlier.
Yeah,
don't throw Delaney under the bus. That's not. Delaney,
Well,
Joseph, I don't protect you against Lance here.
I'm not throwing her under the bus, guys, but she does normally provide me a preemptive text that says, turn off your ringer. So
I do.
All right, Delaney. Well, and it still doesn't work. All right. Tell us what happened here. This is interesting. Rafael Martinez, he got a lot of money. Go ahead.
So he was the CEO and the primary owner of MBE Capital Partners. And at the very beginning of the pandemic and the PPP program, he applied for a loan stating he had 15 employees, a monthly payroll of about $120,000, and he was seeking almost $300,000. Of course, there was a lot of doctored and fraudulent records and documents going into this, and allegedly he really only had 4 employees and a monthly payroll of about $25,000. Now, in less than a week after putting in this application, he put in an application to the SBA that would allow MBE Capital Partners to be a non-bank PPP lender. He once again used some allegedly false documents stating he serviced over almost $4 billion in loans and commercial financial receivables. So he was successful in both of those attempts. And even beyond that, he managed to obtain an additional $100 million from a life insurance company to support minority and women-owned small businesses during the pandemic. So he did at least lend almost $1 billion in PPP loans to over 36,000 small businesses, but in return, he made about $72 million in lender fees.
Lance?
This is a mess.
I got nothing.
Well, I think I also read, Bob, that many of his supposed PPP loans were not legitimate PPP loans.
Of course. Yeah.
This guy milked the system from various angles. He got a PPP loan himself, and then he got set up as a PPP lender and did it that way. And of course, I love
me. I understand these one-off loans. That's fine, but when you give them the keys to the kingdom, that's a little rough to take.
Are you ready for the lineup of what he allegedly spent these fees on?
Let's go.
It is quite a list. So first off, it was a $10 million villa in the Dominican Republic, a $3.5 million mansion in New Jersey, a chartered jet service, and this is where it gets interesting. A lot of very nice luxury cars, a 2018 Porsche 911 Turbo, a 2017 Ferrari 488 Spider, a 2017 Bentley Continental GT, a BMW 750, and a 1962 Mercedes-Benz 190.
All right.
Bob, I'm filing for seizure on those. No.
Yeah, I was going to say. And he put this all together in, 3 months? How do you spend all this money that quickly? I don't understand that. But
now, of course, this is all alleged, but I will be sure to track this case. This is a very interesting story.
Oh, this guy is going to jail for a long time if these are turn out.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Bob. I think the one-off PPP fraud is also. I'm with you, Bob. Oh well. Yeah, they're going to go after him for that. But getting set up as
foreclose it, but yeah.
Yeah, but submitting to SBA, getting set up as a non-bank lender, borrowing funds from an insurance company, and making fraudulent PPP loans on top of that, this guy's got to, he's going to spend a lot of time in a quiet place.
Tell all over when he became a USDA non-bank lender, and he got funded through a secondary market through pension funds.
Yeah,
same concept. It's amazing. People just aren't doing their due diligence, from the bureaucrats to the investors, and this guy can get away with that. That's too bad. What did our ophthalmologist do? You have a nice degree and you're out there helping people, but that wasn't enough for Mr. Goyle, or Dr. Goyle.
Yeah, so this is an update on a case that I wrote an article about and we discussed on the show a couple months ago. He finally got sentenced. For a little background, he had a large scheme where he made over $3.5 million by upcoding various procedures and upcharging his patients and life insurance companies. So he was on a pretrial release for this issue. And during this pretrial release, he applied for 2 PPP loans, obtaining over $600,000. So as you can see, 8 years in prison, and he has to pay, I believe, over $7 million in forfeiture and restitution.
wow.
Well, prisons need eye doctors, so that'll be his new career. And the upcoding and that's classic Medicare fraud. We've never talked about this, or medical fraud, where coding is you have something and he gets a higher reimbursement rate from miscoding, and that's not a one-off. When these guys do that, that's major fraud, and they have it all. They know how to do it, and Medicare is just one step behind them, but they're catching up. Finally, Miami-Dade Police Department. What's going on in South Florida, South Beach?
Miss Elisa Rivera was a full-time employee of the Miami-Dade Police Department. She faced no financial issues during the pandemic, but she got a co-conspirator to apply for an EIDL loan online, claiming she had a business with a 12-month revenue of over $325,000 and 12 employees, which there's no proof to back this up. In addition, she was actually helping other people apply for the EIDL advances. So on all of these different $10,000 advances, she would get a kickback of $1,000, and she pled guilty.
All right. I got nothing, as I said.
It's a full-fledged Fraud Friday, Bob.
Yeah. But look, we're going to follow up on the MBE. I want to know more about how he got the keys to the kingdom to be able to become a PPP funder, and how he got funded. That's very interesting to me. Real quick, Delaney, we have March 2022. That's going to go out today. And here are your top 5. The big story that people need to be aware of. This is for C-suite, board of directors, other interested people who aren't involved in the day-to-day of your organization. If someone's criticizing you that we're not getting our $2 million plus PPPs, say, hey, 92% of the industry is in that. 92% or 98%?
It was about 98%, Bob.
It was 98.2%.
That's right. I knew there was a 2 in there somewhere. Basically, the SBA is holding it all up, so we'll be following that. OIG continues their improper payments. They'll be doing that for the next 100 years. The FBI caught our friends in Montenegro. Have we heard anything? Have they been extradited? Or?
I've heard no new updates since.
And near and dear to Lance's heart, we're supposed to get 2 new SOPs. And I don't want you to forget about this new USDA food supply chain guaranteed loan program. We'll be covering that more interesting stuff. Lance, thank you so much. I look forward to your webinar next Wednesday on PPP and Unforgiven, and updates on make sure we're doing everything correctly. Delaney, thank you very much. Sorry, everyone, we were all late. But have a nice weekend, and thank you for joining us for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a good one.
Great day.